on. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. You asked me if you had some difference between the synchronization of the TI job artifacts and the uploads, right?
Yeah.
Basically, we don't have. Basically, the difference that we have today is between the uploads LFS objects and the CI job artifacts and the other kind of data types like the repositories. The main difference is that for this file stuff like the uploads and LFS objects and the CI job artifacts,
yeah,
we don't trigger an event on the primary node when we upload a new file or when add a new LFS object to a project. For example, when a repository gets updated on the primary node, we trigger an event, a due repository updated event. So the secondary node process this event and schedule a worker to synchronize the repository. So for the upload stuff, we don't have this kind of event. So we have this worker that runs on the secondary node, the file downloads patch worker. He's responsible for running a lot of queries to determine which uploads or LFS objects or CI job artifacts we need to download from the primary node.
Okay.
This is the main difference between the upload and LFS objects and CI job artifacts from the repository update stuff. So basically, this work will try to find in our database the files that the secondary node doesn't have yet. So they will perform a query to find the attachments. That means that here we include the uploaded files, to find the LFS objects that you don't have on the secondary node, and also to find the job artifacts. For each of these kind of uploads that we have, we will schedule a file download worker. Basically, it's a worker that we include on the sidekick that's responsible to download the file from the primary server, primary node, sorry. So basically here you discover which files you don't have on the secondary node, and for each of these files, we are scheduling a file download worker. The file download worker will try to download the file on the primary server using this class. That's the file download service. That's basically this generic class here.
Yeah. Okay.
This class is responsible to find which downloader each need to use. For example, if you are trying to download the LFS object from the primary node, we know that you need to call the GitLab LFS downloader. Okay. We have a lot of these downloaders here. For example, due LFS downloader. This specific downloader knows how to download the LFS object from the primary node. We also have, for example, the job artifact. Sorry, the job artifacts downloader. Job artifact downloader here. This job knows how to find how to download the job artifact from the primary node. Basically, what they do that they inherit from this class a dual file downloader that has all the common logic to download the file. And on the primary side, we have almost the same logic, but we have the file upload service. This class knows how to send the file from the primary node to the secondary node.
Okay.
Basically, what it does, it handle all the authentication stuff, because all the communication from the primary and secondary are secure. You use the JWT token to validate the request. So yep, basically are these files that are involved during the process to find which files you need to download from the primary, and how you will download the files from the primary, and how to send the files from the primary to the secondary. I don't know, I think that was really very quick the introduction, but if you have any questions.
Download worker. I have a very stupid question.
Okay.
Oh, what? So upload. Again, this is dumb. Wait, what's the difference between upload and download in this context? Is it like where it's happening?
Okay, let's see. For example, try to recapitulate this here. We have this worker on the secondary node.
Secondary. Okay, the download is on this.
That's the new file. The file download dispatch worker runs on the secondary node. This worker tried to find the attachments, the loaded uploaded files. Okay, find the LFS objects and CI job artifacts. Attachment. Oops. Perfect.
And it's looking for those
in the database.
at the table of like event.
No, we don't have a table.
Okay.
So, for example, let's see. I can check the queries. You can see, for example, for the job artifact job finders. It use this job artifact registry finder. Basically, they share the same interface for the file registry finder, but they need to build the specific queries for each data type. And here, basically, what they do here is we have a table on the primary node that is replicated to the secondary node.
Yeah.
So in this table, you have all the job artifacts that is generated by GitLab. And on this Juice secondary node, you have the tracking database that you have a table that you keep track of which job artifacts that we already have on the secondary node. So basically this finder try to find all the registry that you don't have on the tracking database, or the registry that we tried to sync one time, but it failed for some reason.
Okay.
So it will do the same for the other data types, for the LFS objects and the CI job artifacts. Basically, what differs is the final query. You need to look in, for example, LFS objects, you need to look in another table, and for attachments in another table as well. And for each of these file uploads that you don't have on the second node, here on the second node, first one, we schedule another job. There's the file download worker. File download worker. this one will run this service, the gel file download service. This service is just responsible to keep track, for example, when we started downloading the file, how many download, the download result, if the file that you are trying to sync exists on the database but does not exist on the file system on the primary node. We keep track of this information. So basically, it will call this method that you try to find the specific downloader for this file type. And this downloader, for example, for the LFS downloader, is responsible to download the file itself from the primary node.
Okay.
Just for an example, let's put this one here. GitLab. Okay. So here we try to download the file. This is what happens on the secondary node. Just this, and this guy here, it's also updated the tracking database.
Right. So that the next time the
file downloads,
the next time the dispatch worker looks at that table, it sees that that file's already been downloaded. Okay.
And on the primary, we don't have any workers that run there. We just have the file uploader. File uploader. I lost the file. Upload service. Yeah, the upload server. File upload server. Okay, how does this works here? The LFS downloader, make an API call to the first node.
Okay.
Well, here we have the API, right? And the API will call the file upload service to send the data to the secondary node.
Okay.
So basically, this is what happens on the secondary node to sync all the upload files from the primary.
Okay. And that transfer of the file, that's what happens securely with the JWT, the web.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I have the JWT key for the authorization here. Generate the token. If I'm not wrong, I think that this is the guy that is responsible to generate the token on the secondary node, and this to receive the token and make sure that it's as valid token.
And the verification, is that the checksum?
Okay, good question.
No, okay.
If I'm not wrong, Michael worked this recently.
Okay, I can ask.
No, but I can try to show you. I know that we don't do the verification for the CI job artifacts. I think that you don't have this information on the database on the primary node. But I can try to find here where we do the verification. LFS downloader. So find the MR here.
Maybe look up like job artifact.
Yeah, checksum.
Checksum. Yeah.
Oh, replication. Yeah, but basically, we have another difference. We only do the verification for LFS objects and uploads after we download it on the secondary node.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have yet automatic background verification for upload files on the secondary node like we have for the repositories. I think that this is the next step. We have another work that will go through our database and make sure that all of our uploaded files are up to date with the primary node. I can show that for you how this works for repositories.
Okay.
Workers too. Okay. Repository verification. Repository verification. It happens on both nodes. On the primary node, we need to calculate the checksum of the repositories.
Mm-hmm.
Every time that someone pushes the repository or update the repository through the UI, we need to recalculate this checksum.
Okay.
Basically, we have this batch worker here that we schedule a repository verification charge worker per charge. So, for example, if we spread our repositories in 10 shards, we'll have 10 workers running here, one for each charge. And charge worker is responsible to find the jobs, ultimately load the pending resources. We'll try to find projects that have never been verified before, projects that have been updated recently, or failed projects as well. And for each of those projects, it will schedule another job with a single worker. Okay. The single worker will check if you are running on a primary, and you call the services. This service, repository verification primary service. Basically, it will verify the checksum for the repository and for the week. We calculate the checksum for both every time. If you update the week, you calculate the checksum for the week and for the repository. If you get the repository, calculate for the repository in the week as well. Okay, now that we calculated this on the primary node, you trigger an event, the reset checksum event star. This event will be processed by the secondary node that will reset the the checksum on the secondary node and schedule another worker on the secondary node to recalculate the checksum.
Okay.
And on the secondary node, we have the same structure. We have the scheduler that you schedule the charge worker per charge. The charge worker, you find the projects that need to be verified on the secondary node. And the single worker will do the job itself. You recalculate this stuff using the repository verification secondary service. That's basically almost equal to the primary node. The service here, it calculates, we call the single worker the service it calculates for the weekend repository as well. And you update the tracking database with the new information. And for the events, let me see. On the primary, we trigger the reset checksum event. And this is the class here on the secondary node, the GitLab Geo log cursor events, reset checksum event, that we call when the secondary receive this event. And we just call the registry onto his reset checksum. Why just reset the checksum here? We don't calculate another one, because on the secondary node, if the primary updated, we push it to a project on the primary node, the repository get updated, and we calculate a new checksum. So on the secondary node, we need to wait for the repository sync to run. If you calculate the checksum here right now, maybe we don't have the data up to date, so you cause a mismatch. So basically, this is the way the repository verification works. I think that the next step for the uploads is to do something like this. For now, we just verify them after we download it on the secondary node. But I don't know if you notice it. We always follow I have some standard here we have a worker on the primary, and to find something that we need to do, schedule something to another worker to do the job on it. For example, we have a worker on the secondary. For example, we'll try to find outdated repositories. And we schedule another worker that will calculate the checksum, for example. Basically, we have this pattern on the secondary node. We have this for repositories. We have the same for upload files. We have a worker that will try to find the missing files on the secondary node. And this worker will schedule another worker that is responsible to do the actual job. For example, let me try and make this a little simpler. For example, for files, we have the file download dispatch worker on the secondary node that try to find missing uploaded files. And for each missing uploaded files, we include the file download worker that is responsible to download the file. We also have, for example, for verification, we have the geo, the name here. Have the geo verification second actually worker. Try to find related projects, outdated projects, or projects that we need verification. And we schedule the real job that do this. That in this case is this big one. And for the primer, we have the same here. We have a worker responsible to find the has a secondary. I'm gonna go. I don't know the name, so I think that here. Secondary. Here's the. But try to do the same, but find out the data the projects are present in verification of the primer and call the primer single worker. And we have this for downloads, same thing. Anyway, for every data type that we add, you will follow this. For example, we are adding the replication for Docker container registry. You check the code, you have a worker here, the container repository, sync dispatch worker.
Yeah.
It runs on, sorry. He will trigger the repository sync worker for each registry that you need to, container has to need to update. Basically, we always follow this pattern. We have some worker that try to find the missing information or the out-of-date information in our database. And for each of these items, could be projects or preloaded files, we schedule another file that will do the real job. To upload, to download the file, or to sync the repository.
I think I'm getting confused by what we mean with verification. So does verification mean comparing the checksums calculated on primary and secondary for the same project, or does it mean something else? Because I think, yeah, that's where I'm getting confused. Does it always involve?
Oh, yeah, you're right. On the primary, you calculate the checksum on the primary.
Yeah.
And you try to compare, you recalculate with the checksum on the second. Basically, our verification do this.
Okay.
On the primary, we write this on the database, the regular database, and this information is secondary is started on the tracking database.
Okay. So the checksum from primary that gets replicated when the database.
Yes.
Okay. So okay.
The difference here is that for uploads, files, I'm not sure. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think that to calculate the SHA to 56 first, to 56 from. I don't know if the size of the upload file, we need to double check. But I know that for repositories, the checksum is the sum of the refs that you have on the repository. For example, if you push a branch, you create a new ref inside the repository, and this change the checksum. And if you have all the same refs on both repositories, you can make sure that they hold the same data.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Any other question? I hope that I could make something clear for you, but yeah.
I think so. Luckily, I recorded it, so I can rewatch it. Yeah. But I think I get it. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for going over this.
Yeah. If you have any questions,
if I think of any questions, I'll let you know.
For sure.
It's always good to go through it with someone who's much more familiar with it than I am at this point. So, thank you.
Thank you for going so quickly, but sometimes that I have all this on my mind. I think that's easy to understand. So feel free to ask any question that you could have.
Okay, I will do that. I'll stop recording.